Hey gang, what's up? So if you've been following my channel for a while now, you will see I've been doing a lot of promoting for Shrek the Musical at a school. So in honour of doing that, as this is show week when I'm making this video, I've decided to do an overview of Shrek. We're going to mix things up on this channel a little bit because I don't want to do full analytical reviews for everything. There are just a lot of topics I also want to talk about with film in more of a fun, interesting, accessible way, rather than me droning on about the production behind the film, which I know not everyone is interested in. So in this video, I want to look at how Shrek as a franchise has grown through different platforms and mediums, and why this franchise came to be in the first place, as well as my thoughts ranking each of the installments in this franchise. Let's get to it! To date, there are currently 4 official Shrek films titled Shrek, Shrek 2, there's another one, and then there's Shrek Forever After. Only 3 of these actually matter though, and we'll get to why that is in a bit. Over the years, it's also got its own spin-offs, including Halloween features, and a musical based on it, which is an interesting show, and it's one that I won't be forgetting taking part in anytime soon. I'm going to start by doing a bit of an overview into each of these films and the show, and then give a bit of a ranking as to how much they develop the franchise as a whole. As part of the Shrek universe, there are also the Puss in Boots films, which are 2 very different films, in that one of them is absolutely stunning and the other one is passable. Not Shrek the Third levels of low, but Shrek was built on a really chaotic, rocky foundation, and it's amazing that it's managed to spawn this entire franchise that is so beloved. Behind the scenes at DreamWorks, Shrek was worked on by a bunch of disgruntled Disney employees who wanted to make a different take on a fairy tale. They started using the CG approach that was introduced with the early days of Pixar in Bug's Life and Toy Story, and really wanted to modernise this structure with a lot of twists to poke fun at Disney, including the whole Duloc Lord Farquaad thing, which is only amplified in the musical later down the line. It's a great twist on the fairy tale structure that had been amplified by Disney over the previous years, seeing that the main character is this ogre, so not really a character that you'd see in the spotlight on previously. It's a weird one because it looks at the discrimination in fairy tale kingdoms, and it is a metaphor for many interesting aspects of history, to put it lightly. It's quite well paced. The soundtrack is stunning for this film. Every song is put in there with care. Go check out Sideways' video on how the music of Shrek makes this a phenomenon. But what it does do excellently is it makes way for a sequel that was inevitably going to happen after this success. DreamWorks had jumped the gun on Disney using CGI, and actually I think their CGI has been more successful than Disney's has with the animation. They've been ahead of the game recently as well with the updated Spider-Verse version of animation from Puss in Boots and soon to be the Wild Robot, which I'm very looking forward to. Whereas Disney's attempt with Wish was, yeah, just go check out my video on Wish. Lord Farquaad is exactly the villain this sort of film needs, and it's such a shame that they changed so much about him for this show. We'll get to that one later. Farquaad as a character plays into all of those short jokes, but it does them with levity and makes them worthwhile. Also, everyone knows about the whole Mama Bear, or Papa Bear, I can't remember which one it was, dying. Like, there's 3 bears at the beginning of the film, and then they come back and one of them is missing and one of them is a rug. I think it's Mama Bear. It's kind of tragic. But that film has so many hidden innuendos and there's fun for the whole family, which is what animation is all about. I hate when, especially at the Oscars this year, animation is credited as only being a children's product, whereas there is so much more you can accomplish with animation than with live action. I just wish that the people who make those films are treated more fairly. Lord and Miller, the one. And of course, Shrek is one of the most memeable films in all of existence. Great era to have this film be made. Moving on to Shrek 2, one of the highlights of animation that still holds up today and will forever baffle me how this was a creation that exists. Whatever they were high on this film, I kind of want it. Like, It's crazy ideas-wise. And to think that it came out at the same time as Shark Tale obviously meant they put all of their best animators and story designers in one place and abandoned the other project. Go check out Shea Frillis Productions because he covers both of these films in such detail that I would just be re-addressing. But the second one works as perfectly as a sequel possibly can. It takes what we know about the world and expands it in new and interesting directions, introducing new characters and themes that directly tie into the first, but can be their own thing. You get more backstory as to why Fiona is the way she is. We meet her family and we expand that whole side of the kingdom, and I just love that Far Far Away is like Hollywood. And there's the Starbucks gag. We love the Starbucks gag. The ending of this film is absolutely insane with Holding Out for a Hero. Like, who would have thought a giant gingerbread man carrying an ogre and friends to a castle to save a princess would be an interesting thing? Or who comes up with this stuff? We also introduce Puss in Boots here, which then becomes a crucial part of the series going forward. Well, he's kind of abandoned a little bit after this one, but he gets his own spin-offs. Whereas with the first one we put Fiona out of her comfort zone with being an ogre, we kind of switched that with Shrek becoming human for a bit in this one. The film elaborates a lot on their romantic connection, and that is something that is needed because it's slightly lucky in the first one, I think. It feels contrived to a level to play into the fairy tale tropes, but in the second one, it's realised fully. I also do just really appreciate the line of her waiting for Prince Charming in the first one, only for it to actually be Prince Charming in the second one. It creates this parallel story that makes it interesting all around. Shrek the Third is a film that sadly exists. I'm very open about this one in that I particularly don't like it, and I don't think anyone should. I mean, if you can get some enjoyment out of this, go for it. I think as a child, like, it was one of the ones I had on DVD in my room, and so I watched it a few times. And then over the years I've realised what an absolute mess it is, and how as a sequel it just doesn't work. Shrek the Third follows Shrek and co as they go to find Arthur to become the new king of Far Far Away. Meanwhile, Fiona's dealing with some issues of her own with Prince Charming, and she teams up with the other princesses. It's a bit of a mess. Prince Charming back as the villain is just weak. It feels like a straight-to-DVD sequel rather than a main movie in the franchise. It goes so far that the fourth one doesn't even acknowledge the existence of Shrek the Third, as it doesn't expand the world in any meaningful ways. Yes, Shrek is grappling with maybe having children, but the whole montage and his dreams of that are really odd and childish, and it just takes away the levity from the rest of the series so far. The whole thing with Charming teaming up with all of the fairy tale villains to take over Far Far Away, and then them all turning away with one single speech from Arthur that actually isn't a great speech anyway, it's just ridiculous. You've also killed all of the potential villains for the future. Well, supposedly. That is until Shrek Forever After comes along and retcons Rumpelstiltskin being in that collection of villains out of existence and introduces this new short version. Funny that 3 of the 4 villains from the Shrek films are tiny, and those are the ones that are good. They need to be shorties, apparently. Shrek's character arc in that film is so much weaker. Merlin is an absolute bonkers guy that isn't developed enough. You do get some good time with Fiona and the other princesses though. They are very stereotyped in what those princesses should be, and that's kind of the whole point, which I love. For me, that sequence works a lot better than Disney using the princesses in Ralph Breaks the Internet, because that film is an absolute pigsty. You get all of your fairy tale characters randomly returning, and they're a bit pointless in this one, to be honest. But overall, there isn't any meaningful connection made, and the songs just don't work as well. There's a fine line that it needs to walk to make the soundtrack work. 1 and 2 hit that perfectly, whereas 3, the songs are just blatantly what's going on with no further messaging. But yeah, if you find joy in this film, great. But if you're in the majority like myself, no. Even the climax just isn't interesting. You go from using a dragon to burst into a wedding, and the whole massive gingerbread man storming during Holding Out for a Hero, to Prince Charming putting on a performance while singing terribly, and he's going to kill Shrek on stage. It's actually daft and just really underwhelming. So let's move on. And the final film so far in the main Shrek timeline is Shrek Forever After, which I'm glad they named it such because it doesn't really need to be fourth and it can just be third. This film expands on the original two very well by bringing together concepts from them, in that Rumpelstiltskin's plotline was going on while the other two films were happening in the first place, and deal with the King and Queen while Fiona's up in the tower. And I think that's an excellent touch for this film, to rewrite the history within it and give us a fresh take on this character. You meet all of the main cast in different contexts. I think that Puss in Boots' inclusion it's just played for laughs, and there's nothing past that with Fat Puss in Boots. But Fiona really shines in this film. This is where she properly comes into her own. She's sick of waiting for her prince and she breaks herself out and becomes the leader she was always meant to be. It's a great twist to see Shrek and Fiona have to rekindle their relationship in this new world, and what Rumpelstiltskin has managed to do to Far Far Away turn into his own. His witches are quite a fun side piece to him. Of course, this film is then written out of history in the universe as things are reset. And that means that only Shrek can remember what happened because it's an alternate timeline, which is a bit sad because those other characters haven't really grown from it. But it's a great character arc for Shrek, and I would be interested to see how they continue this, though I am very worried. The potential of a Shrek 5 scares me, as the first 3 films are a beautiful trilogy, and I don't want a 5th film to come in and ruin that. However, my hope was reinstated when Puss in Boots: The Last Wish came out. To date, there have been 2 Puss in Boots films, Puss in Boots and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. 2 very different films within the Shrek universe that build on the character of Puss in Boots in very different ways. The first one, Puss in Boots, is an absolute joy to watch. It's a very underrated film in my opinion, and has some great fairy tale concepts that are left out of the Shrek films, such as Humpty Dumpty and Jack and the Beanstalk. Humpty Dumpty being the bad guy is hilarious, and it is actually very entertaining seeing Humpty Dumpty in the show version of the original film. Very entertaining seeing Humpty Dumpty in the show version of the original film. We'll get to Shrek the Musical. Oh boy, we're gonna get there. The whole Puss in Boots and co doing the Jack and the Beanstalk plot is great, with Jack and Jill following them. It's a great narrative structure, and overall the pacing works. You get this lovely sort of Mexican setting, which really plays into Antonio Banderas as Puss in Boots, and he makes an excellent love interest in Kitty Softballs, who is a great feature to this series. Overall, I don't have much to say about the original film. I love the I was always there montage from Humpty Dumpty, which is just completely ludicrous. And him just being an egg at the end is fine, I guess. But then we move on to Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which is a absolute masterpiece that came out a couple of years ago. Using the Spider-Verse style that was instated by Lord and Miller over at Sony, this just excels in every form of film. It exactly shows why animation is important in the modern age, with a fairly simple narrative structure, but it shines with its antagonists that makes this a compelling story. I would say there are 3 major types of antagonists that go into films in general. You have the blatant, I am evil and I will do evil things. You have the one that's more of an internal conflict for the main character, and you have the ones that can have a change of heart or are slightly more human. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish manages all 3 of these in the space of one film that actually isn't very long for its animation. It's incredible how it manages to keep up these plot lines, and it does get through quite a lot of fairy tale concepts, so I'm worried for where the rest of the franchise can go. The voice cast for this one as well. Animation voice casts have always baffled me with how good of people they've got in them. Obviously this film also has the evil death wolf that everyone is obsessed with, and is handled really well in the film, and his exit is excellent. And it does leave it open for Puss in Boots going back to Far Far Away to sync up with Shrek in the 5th film. Now Shrek 5 at this stage is supposedly coming out in 2025. We'll see how this video ages. And I'd be interested to see Shrek in the style of this film, which is what I'm assuming they do. I wonder if then Kitty Softpaws and, of course, Perito would play a part in the next Shrek film and really bring the series together as a whole.